Today's episode is amazing. I'm super into astrology and I'm super into ACOTAR, so it's a perfect combination. Hey guys, Nina here, and welcome to More Than Fiction. So, today's episode is amazing. I haven't even started, but I already know it's gonna be great just because I'm super into astrology and I'm super into ACOTAR, so it's a perfect combination. I actually posted a poll on Instagram whether you guys want to hear it or not, and it's been up for 2 hours, and I'm already recording this just because even if you guys were not into it, I would record it regardless. So I have been into astrology and into Zodiac since I was 12 years old. I've always been interested in the way the human mind works, you could say. So that's why I also read quite a few psychology books and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm completely a big believer in Zodiac in the sense, that everything that we do is connected to the stars. I'm not like that. But I do think that some of these qualities that are described in horoscopes kind of tend to be true, at least for me personally, and for a lot of my family members and people that I just know. So that's why I find it to be interesting. And as for ACOTAR, well, ACOTAR was the first episode we did here on our podcast, on my podcast now. For anyone who doesn't know, I used to have a co-host, and yeah, the first books we did were ACOTAR. We also have ACOTAR theories up, so this is nothing new for me. And that's why I told myself, well, I'm such a professional on both of these topics, why not do an episode about it, right? So hopefully it's gonna be as interesting for you guys to listen to it as it is interesting for me to talk about it. So let's just get to the point. We're gonna start with Aries, right? And well, guess who's such a typical Aries? It is our queen, Nesta. Okay, she is the most typical Aries there is. They're driven by a desire to prove themselves and to prove their strength. They have high energy and are competitive and ambitious. And this is definitely her, when she walks into a room, she's the immediate leader. Everyone gravitates towards her. But she also has a desire to prove herself in the sense that when she started training with Cassian, she was reluctant to do it at first, but once she did, she was completely invested and she really wanted to show what she can do, right? And they also naturally take charge because they're good at initiating new projects. And this could be seen when she started training. She noticed that the priestesses, they could use something as well. So she was the one who kind of gave the idea, who initiated this entire project and who came up with it, right? For Cassian to train them as well. These signs can also be very impatient, but they're naturally active and don't like to waste time. Again, I think this is Nesta. And while they do like competition, as mentioned, they don't like to play games. They're highly self-aware, have strong opinions, and are always ready to defend them. That's so true as well. Nesta, she's such an opinionated person. You always know she takes no shit and she lets you know that, right? She doesn't play any games. What you see is what you get with her. And that's something that I've always really appreciated about her character. Even when I kind of didn't like her at the beginning, when she was just being a bitch, sometimes it seemed for no reason, especially towards Farah. I did not appreciate that. But what I did appreciate is, that you just know what you'll get with her. She's not a hypocrite. And Nesta is actually referred to by Farah as a queen without a throne, stoic, poised, regal, and judgmental. She confronted and did not back down from the mortal queens and high lords of Prythian. So that's another Aries example, right? And she doesn't need to resort to violence or power to be intimidating and taken seriously. Like I mentioned before, she walks into a room and she just takes control. And then another quality of these signs is that they want to feel things intensely. And this is a very commendable quality because, as we all know, being emotional and feeling things, that can be sometimes scary. And it takes some guts to be like that, right? But, since if you are like that, it can cause you a great deal of pain and grief. And that's also what happens with Nesta. For example, Farah, for a long time, she believed that Elaine is the only person Nesta actually loves and would do anything to protect. But Farah actually later realizes that Nesta feels more strongly than other people and has built a shield around herself to protect her heart. And here's a quote, for example, about Nesta. So Nesta had become a wolf, armed herself with invisible teeth and claws, and learned to strike faster, deeper, more lethally, had relished it. But when the time came to put away the wolf, she'd found it had devoured her too. Exactly what I just explained that, Aries as a sign tends to be. They're very emotional and they want to feel things, but it can destroy them. And this almost happened to Nesta. She got out of it, thankfully. So they also tend to be impulsive, impatient, and hot-headed. They're often reacting out of emotion rather than from a place of calm and clear-headedness. And they do not apologize for their anger. They say, I don't care, and mean it. They don't have the best self-control. Again, Nesta, how many times did she react just out of pure anger, pure emotion? She just walked down those stairs and then threw up and almost killed herself on them, but she just had to do it. She's not patient. Also, when it came to Farah, she kind of exploded when they voted about her. So she told Farah about the pregnancy, problems that she might have. She just reacts, right? It doesn't come from a bad place. She's not her intentions aren't malicious, but she's just such a hot-headed person. And honestly, I'm personally a very hot-headed person too. I sometimes say things I don't mean, but later on I do recognize, that I might have overreacted and I apologize. I think Nesta is at this point too, where she will too in the future, but she hasn't done that in the past. And yeah, after she said to Farah what she said, eventually she did kind of, show her that she didn't mean it and everything. So yeah, she's on the right path. And then when it comes to the romantic side of these signs, and their so-called soulmates, someone who's meant to be with this sign is a flirtatious, fierce, and emotionally forthright person. They enjoy being captivating, and they're also allured by the idea of being captured. Aries seeks out lovers who share their appetite for risk. And come on, who is that, right? Cassian is just like that. He shares that appetite for risk and he doesn't back down from her. Also, Aries can be very aggressive in love. They want someone who can stand their ground. Come on, aggression in love, let's be more particular, aggression in bed, that's Cassian and Nesta to a T. Am I right? And Cassian always stands his ground when it comes to her. He's the only one who literally can handle her and her moods and her, kind of tough exterior. He sees her for what she is. And if the person that's supposed to be with them is able to handle their volatility, they'll find that they're fiercely loyal and emotionally generous. An Aries is the kind of person who will ride into your life and gently hand you a rose in the middle of an emotional storm. They're the kind of person who likes to leave things better than they found them. I think this is a good conclusion to the Aries sign and to Nesta as an Aries. And fight me on this. The moment I kind of understood Nesta a bit better as a character, I was just well, shit, she's an Aries. And she kind of reminds me of my mom a bit. My mom's an Aries too. So, there's something about this zodiac. Come on. And then we have Taurus. So, Taurus. Okay. Look, I know that there's this particular character in these books that most people in this fandom don't really like. And that's Tamlin. So Tauruses, please don't be mad at me for choosing this character as, a part of your, community. But it's not malicious. I don't have anything against Tauruses. I actually like Tamlin. I'm not one of those people who doesn't like them. I'm not one of those people who believes that he's a toxic abuser who, has zero redeeming qualities. Not at all. Actually, quite the contrary. I've also discussed this in our previous ACOTAR episodes. My previous co-host, she was kind of let's say, against Tamlin, not entirely, but kind of against him, while I was entirely for him. So we had interesting debates about him. So go check that out. But yeah, let's dive in as to why I believe he's a Taurus. So, Tauruses are normally satisfied with the way things are. They embody stability, they love routine, and they're committed to their own comfort. They like to be in control, they like things to be predictable. They're perfectly happy eating the same meal over and over or wearing the same outfit for a week straight. They would prefer things to be consistent than chaotically good. They like to discover what they have the most fun doing and then do it to the extreme. I mean, come on. Come on. Is there anything else to say here? Tamlin, he's such a control freak. I mean, a control freak to a point where it's actually not, healthy, you could say. He definitely enjoys tradition. Also to a point in where you could say that it might not be healthy. For example, I forgot the word for this tradition that they have in Spring Court, but when like the villagers, they kind of bring stuff to him as payment, and he didn't want to change that, even though Farah was like, you should, this is not right. Some people don't have anything to eat and they're giving you their last provisions. And he still didn't change that, because I think that he actually said something along the lines of, my father always did it like this. It's how it's always been done. So he's just used to this tradition. I mean, his father is someone he doesn't even like at the end of the day, and yet he still wants to keep it the way it is, just because he doesn't like change that much. So that's, I think, Tamlin to a T. And I don't think it's coming, again, it's not a malicious thing. It's not like he wants people to starve. He's just used to a certain pattern. He's used to this routine, and he's scared of change. And, we're human. I think us as people, as humans, we can understand that. Change is scary, and it happens all the time, and it's scary. It's exciting sometimes, but scary nonetheless. Okay, then you can imagine Tauruses as like sitting in a patch of grass, admiring the breeze. And again, like literally Tauruses are described like this, while Tamlin, I mean, he literally was for a lot of, I think quite a few scenes in ACOTAR, the first book, he was like just sitting in the grass with Farah, or was it just one? I don't know. But it's an image that pops into my mind when I think about him, just sitting among the flowers and enjoying the breeze and the views and, talking about life and stuff. And yeah, again, a Taurus. And when everything else seems to be falling apart, Tauruses are a rock of dependability. Again, in Tamlin's case, it might have gone to a bit of an extreme, right? He wanted to be so, he wanted to be the safe place for Farah, right? Like someone that she can really rely on and that she can see as a comfort. So she doesn't have to do anything. He will take care of everything. She can depend on him, right? He didn't see that Farah at the beginning, she did need that for sure. But once she changed, she didn't need that anymore, and he couldn't see that. Then they're oriented around the physical world. They tend to be grounded and logical. They have a regal quality about them. They can be stubborn, bullheaded, and set in their ways. But they're also great listeners and very dependable. So again, bullheaded, stubborn, but great listeners and very dependable, like I've mentioned. I feel like I'm repeating myself a bit, but still. It has to be said. And yes, I think he is a great listener. I think there were moments in which he talked to Farah and he really listened to her. Like in the first book when they were getting to know each other, I think she told him about her family and about everything that she has gone through. And he just, sat there and he listened to her. And I think she said something along the lines, that she's never had this, that she's never felt like she was actually heard the way she felt when she was with Tamlin. So that's something that we shouldn't forget about. And he said to her something along the lines, don't feel bad for one moment about doing what brings you joy. They don't respond well to criticism, which we have also seen to an extreme. And in the sense, like I said, that they're bullheaded, they're stubborn, they're not going to do something they don't want to do. But when they do want to do something, once they really believe in something, they are fighting for that. And here's a quote actually that he said that confirms this. Against slavery, against tyranny, I will gladly go to my death, no matter whose freedom I was defending. So, he will fight for what he believes in. So yeah, When it comes to Tauruses and their romantic life, their soulmates or whatever, they're very attracted to practical people who make them feel safe and comfortable. They seek out people that value and appreciate simple pleasures. People with a high degree of physical attractiveness are desirable to them. So before I continue, one of my theories is that Tamlin is actually gonna end up with Elaine. I have already been very vocal about this on Instagram, TikTok, and in our previous episodes. I have a lot of good, I think, arguments for this reasoning. Again, go listen to our theories episode. I'm not gonna, discuss all of them here. But I feel like even in this, if, for example, let's say the Tamlin is a Taurus and, if this is all correct, like seriously, I feel like Elaine would make him feel safe and comfortable for sure. I think she has like a soothing nature to her. She's like a nurturer. And I think that he would find a lot of comfort in, the chaotic world that they live in and in the position that he has, since he is a High Lord who doesn't really want to be a High Lord. I think someone like that could really make him see that he's still okay and that he's gonna be fine. And she also, I feel like, appreciates simple pleasures, like it's stated here. She literally we don't know much about Elaine yet, but we can definitely say that I think she does enjoy spending some time in nature, gardening. I think she also likes to cook. I mean, we did have, I feel like, a scene in which she kind of cooked with those twins, baked. I don't know what she did, but those are all kind of simple pleasures that I think she really finds to be fun. And she's definitely very physically attractive because it has been stated multiple times that that she is the prettiest sister. Then they can also be turned off by people who aren't as well dressed as they are, or who may seem like they don't care what they look like. Tauruses don't tend to be people pleasers because they have a lot of pride. They tend to believe that they are enough without validation from others. I think that's also true. I remember one of the moments in the first book that made me laugh so hard when I think he tried to compliment Feyre because he was obviously trying to get her to fall in love with him, and he said something like, "You look clean," or something stupid like that. And I just remember laughing so hard. I did not understand. And I feel like that stems from the fact that he's just not the type to please people or to suck up to you or to, really force himself upon you, If you like him, you like him. If you don't like him, that's also fine. He's not gonna really try to stand out. He just is the way he is. And that's something that I also kind of appreciated about him. So yeah, that's actually it for Tamlin and for Tamlin as a Taurus. Let me know what you think. If you don't like him, don't take this personally. I think that Tauruses have great qualities, and these qualities that I mentioned, they're all great. But with Tamlin, they're just like enhanced, right? Hopefully in the future we'll kind of get a redemption arc for him, and I'm actually pretty convinced that we will. Let's move on to the Gemini sign, to the Geminis, which is a very interesting, fun sign. I get along with Geminis, and I think I would get along with this character as well, even though he's not one of my favorites, to be completely honest. I don't hate him, I like him, but yeah, not up there. But it's Lucian, okay? Lucian is just such a fun, goofy guy. He's so charismatic, he makes everyone laugh. Like, he's definitely the... if anyone's gonna make you laugh in these books, it's Lucian, okay? Now, let's go to Geminis. Geminis are very intelligent and they pick up knowledge quickly. They are perceptive, analytical, and often very funny. They have an unreserved, childlike curiosity, always asking new questions. Lucian is definitely very intelligent, and just like the Gemini sign, he has an uncanny ability to size up a person's character in a matter of seconds, even if they only just met them. If someone's bluffing, they'll be the first to notice. They're great communicators because they tend to be very responsive and sensitive listeners. And I think this is definitely Lucian because he's basically a diplomat, right? He's the one that Tamlin was sending from court to court in order to communicate and negotiate, right? That is Lucian to a T. And I feel like the Geminis are seen as the diplomatic sign of the Zodiac because they are very likable. I feel like people just gravitate towards them. In the case of the Aries, it's they're natural leaders, so that's why people gravitate towards them. But with Geminis, they're just the people person, right? So because they're also very aware of people, because they understand them so well, they can adapt as well. So they can be the life of the party on one hand, but at the same time, they can also be a complete wallflower. And I feel like we've experienced this with Lucian. We've experienced him as this funny, loud guy, but when he needs to lay low, he lays low. He is capable of doing that. He's smart about it, right? About the way he moves. And I feel like in the case of Elaine, his supposed mate, he has shown that, he's not forcing her into anything. He's very patient and he read her pretty well. He sees that she's not into him, but of course, as his mate, he kind of gravitates toward her and he can't help himself. But still, he read her pretty well and he's acting accordingly, in my opinion. He's been a gentleman. Thank you, Lucian, for that. Yeah, and Geminis also know how to bring dissimilar people together and make them get along. I mean, in the future, I hope that Lucian will be this for Tamlin and for Rhys, for like these two courts. I actually am convinced that he's going to be that. Like I said, he's a diplomat. And he already kind of is doing that, He already, as I understood in the novella that we got and little tidbits of Tamlin, Lucian is kind of visiting him and, hanging out with him. Tamlin's still kind of angry with him, but if anyone can handle that, it's Lucian. Then Geminis are such social butterflies in a sense that they're actually very afraid of being alone. That's why they tend to have large social circles and always have a companion. They're afraid of being trapped in their own minds. And again, I feel like Lucian's always surrounded by people. At first, when we heard about his backstory, meaning that he used to be part of the Autumn Court, but he got banned from there because of everything that happened. So he was obviously surrounded by his toxic family, but he wasn't alone nonetheless. He had his mom. I think she's a good person. He also had his girlfriend who had sadly died, was killed. And then after he was banned, he kind of came into Tamlin's court, so he found himself a home there. He became besties with Tamlin. He wasn't alone. At the end, he kind of integrated himself in a way into the Night Court as much as possible, but not fully. He always kind of felt as an outsider, and because he felt like that, he found a family elsewhere with Jurian and then Firebird lady. I forgot her name. I'm so sorry. I actually ship Lucian with her. I think they're gonna end up together. It makes a lot of sense to me. But again, that's something that I dived in my previous episode, so go check them out. But yeah, so he gravitated towards them, and now he's a part of that gang, and I think they get along very well from what we've heard. We don't have an insight, but I think that they're kind of like a cute gang. They even gave each other, they gave their group a name. So that's cute. And I remember a moment between Lucian and Farah when she was kind of mad at him for leaving the Night Court. She wanted Lucian to come to the Night Court and be with them. Why is he with Jurian and, these strangers or whatever? And he kind of got mad at her and told her, that he deserves to be with a group of people in which he feels like he belongs, right? And that's exactly what he's doing here as a Gemini. So, moving on, Geminis are also afraid of the power of their own imagination. They're afraid of what they'll find once they finally find themselves. I think this will come into play in the future. I mean, I think that right now, Lucian is definitely kind of lost, He doesn't know where he belongs. He was born into the Autumn Court, but he doesn't really belong there in a way. He was part of the Spring Court, but that's not actually his actual court, right? And now he's kind of outside of all of this. Now he's found himself in the human world, and obviously he doesn't belong there either. And I think that kind of suits him for now, that he's just kind of jumping from one thing to the next. Once he actually finds himself, I think he'll be a force to be reckoned with, and I think he's gonna be the one to unite the human kingdom and to unite the Fae kingdom. I mean, the Fae kingdom, the Fae territories. I think that's gonna be him, and I think he's gonna, if they're gonna get a future king, I don't think it's gonna be Rhysand. I mean, Rhys, he himself mentioned that he doesn't want to be king. I think it's gonna be Lucian, and the fact that he is a diplomat, that he basically has a connection to so many different courts and all of that. I think that's meant for him, and he's so charismatic. Also, they're not afraid of their emotions, but they are constantly worried about how they'll convey them, about their words being misconstrued, about unintentionally hurting some feelings. This is a common pattern for Geminis and the result of how they externalize their insecurities. They're afraid of getting caught up in an emotion that they can't control. So they simply react to their emotions rather than feel them. So this is a difficult one because we haven't gotten like an insight into Lucian's feelings just yet, into his head. We did get a glimpse a little bit through Farah, I think, through her perspective. Or no, it was Nesta. I don't remember who it was, but we did get a bit, but that wasn't enough. So this is hard to say, but I can see that being a thing. I mean, Lucian is also pretty traumatized. His father killed his girlfriend, he had to run, he had to fight for his life. I mean, this guy went through a lot. So I think that he does kind of cover up his anguish and trauma under this like guise of a bright, charismatic personality. And that's what Geminis tend to do. Oh, and another thing that kind of has to do with Lucian maybe becoming, being lost and maybe eventually becoming the king. So the most important thing that Geminis need to realize is that there is no final destination to be found at the end of the road. They can't run forever. At some point, they're going to have to stop and look around to take responsibility for the environment they find themselves in. They're going to have to look at the world that they've built for themselves and decide if it's really what they want. And I think there's going to come a time for Lucian when he's going to just have to stop and embrace who and what he is and deal with that, right? And there's another problem with Lucian. His dad is probably not the Autumn Court king. It's probably Helion. So he actually belongs to another court too. So he essentially belongs to 3 courts if you think about it. He's part of the Spring Court in a way, part of the Autumn Court, and part of the Day Court. I think it's the Day Court, right? Helion's court. Well, Helion's court anyways. So he belongs to these 3. And in a way, also to the Night Court, they kind of would accept them because of Elaine. And also he has a bond with Farah. So see, again, this is another reason for Lucian to be the king. Because he just has connections to everyone. Like literally. Even to the human realm because he's there right now. So yeah. And when it comes to romance, Geminis, they want to be accepted. They want to be understood. They're looking for someone who can appreciate their duality and can understand their experience in life. They're looking for a partner who can appreciate the complexity of their thoughts and actions. I mean, is this Elaine? I don't know. Like I said, I'm not into them. I think it could be Elaine still because I think she can understand. I think she's an empathetic person. She can probably understand anyone, really. But still, I don't know. We have to learn more about Elaine. I ship him with Vasa. I just remembered her name. I ship him with Vasa. So a Gemini soulmate will stimulate their mind and challenge them intellectually. Their partner must be able to keep up with them and be able to communicate on an abstract or physical level without getting too emotional. Now, I'm not sure if that's Elaine. I mean, I see her getting emotional, and she's definitely not the best communicator since she doesn't really even talk to Lucian. She doesn't even tell him, dude, I don't like you, go away. That's something that Nesta would do, for example, but Elaine, she's just quiet and she just ignores. I feel like she kind of isn't capable of dealing with problems in that kind of a way. So she rather just walks away and hides instead of dealing with the problem and solving it. And, we all know that Lucian's not a bad guy. He deserves to know what is happening. And she just doesn't address the problem because it's easier to ignore than to address, right? Yeah, okay. So that's that for Lucian. I think I was really long with Lucian. Let's move on to Cancer. So when I think about Cancers, I just think of these sensitive, caring signs. And honestly, that's not something that when I think of Reese, for example, I don't think of him as this sensitive sign, but he's definitely caring. Then after I kind of read and deep dived into Cancers a bit more, I saw Reese in that 100%. So I think that Reese is a Cancer. And let's go into it a little bit. Again, I don't know that many Cancers, so I don't have that much insight here, but I do have something. So The self-awareness of a Cancer is like the tides constantly moving in and out of focus. Their personalities are layered. Cancers have many moods, some of which are contradictory, but they also have a deep core self that persists. And I think this is the case with Reese, because honestly, a lot of the times, I feel like everyone loves Reese in this fandom. Like, he's the fandom sweetheart, right? Well, that's not the case with me. I found him a lot of the times to be a bit too cheesy for my tastes, or too repetitive, with like, Farah, I'm here for you, stuff like that. That was just too much for me. But that's also a writing kind of a thing that I don't like, so it may not have to do that much with him, but still. And I think that in a lot of ways, kind of Reese was a bit hypocritical, in my opinion. So when I read this, that they have like many moods and that it's contradictory, I was like, well, yeah, Jesus, that's the case. I think Reese is just a super moody character. He just like swings his dick or left and right, and you never know what to expect with him, which I think is exciting but in this case, it might be a bit frustrating and annoying. But he does have like a core self that persists, like it's stated here. Deep down, you know that he's a good person. You know that he's not malicious. He wants to do the right thing for everyone, especially for the people he loves. And that's what matters at the end. So yeah, Cancers are weighted down by their own sorrows and the sorrows of those around them. They are frequently haunted by grief. It's hard for them to share their pain with others, and they are often afraid to be vulnerable because they carry a fear that people will use their weaknesses against them. Cancers have learned to hide their pain to avoid burdening anyone else. They pretend they're okay when they're not. Again, I think this is Reese. I mean, literally, when we get to know the guy, he's supposed to be this evil dude, right? Evil. He's supposed to be this bad boy who, is just like Amaranta's pet, right? And he definitely doesn't show the world who he is. He wants them to believe that he's a dick and that he's evil. But actually, he has a lot of emotions and he's just not willing to share them with everyone. He shares them with the ones he loves, and that's Farah and his inner circle. And he does that when he's ready, right? So it's exactly like this. I mean, Reese literally, he was afraid that people will use his weaknesses against him. But at the same time, he's basically like a ruler of a kingdom. So it's even more at stake with him. That's literally a thing. It's not just paranoia. It's a practical kind of a solution. It's also said that Cancers can feel everything, that their emotions are like an exposed nerve. They're like a tuning fork that vibrates at the slightest provocation. They tend to carry deep grudges because they can't forget the emotional sting of even a slight. I think that's also very true. I think that Reese, when someone hurts him, it hurts him for life, just because he just feels everything so deeply. And honestly, I'm a Cancer actually, in like my ascendant is a Cancer, and I feel like I feel that way sometimes. And also, if someone like really betrays me or anything, I will never really move on from that, because I'll always remember how much that hurt. And I think Reese is like that too, in case of Tamlin, for example. I mean, what Tamlin did, like if he did that, like also again, I have a theory that Tamlin didn't actually betray Reese. I think that it was just lack of communication, and it's just not the way. We just saw Reese's point of view, so we know what Reese knows, but we don't know how it actually happened from Tamlin's point of view. So I think that there's a lot of miscommunication going on there, and that things might have been different. But yes, in Reese's head, Tamlin did betray him. So that's something that, of course, he'll not forgive ever. I mean, who would? But still, you get my point, okay? This is like the example that I came up with in this moment. And I feel like he does feel everything. He feels, not just himself and Farah, but his entire inner circle. He feels with them, and yeah, that's beautiful. And in their romantic life, they need a love interest that defines them, because they use love as a building block to construct a more concrete sense of self, as their identity is sculpted by people who have made them feel a certain way. So that's, again, something that I can really relate to when it comes to Rysand. Sometimes when I read this book, it actually annoyed me how much Farah and Rysand were intertwined. It sometimes felt like they were one person. It didn't feel like they were two individuals who were thriving in their own ways. It felt like they lived for each other, and I don't like when that happens. It's too consuming, for my opinion. And again, if he is a Cancer, Makes sense, right? So cancers are essentially living, breathing colleges of the people who have made them feel special. With each new partner, they become a little more whole. So since Farah is basically his mate and his soulmate, he is whole now, you could say, right? And that's so cute. And another quote that's such a cancer quote, and it's something that Reese has stated himself. Be glad of your human heart, Farah. Pity those who don't feel anything at all. I mean, I got goosebumps. Like, who else should say this but a cancer who feels everything so strongly? So, yeah, that's it for Reese and, well, cancers. Hope you guys agree. And let's move on to Leos. So, I wrote down that Helion is a Leo. Honestly, out of all of these characters that we got to know, I feel like Helion has the most Leo energy. We don't know him that well, so I think I'm gonna be short here. Because honestly, Helion is like a side character. His role is a bit smaller, but I think that he did impact me. You know, we didn't get much of him, but what we did get was very powerful, and you know, he kind of sticks with you, right? You don't forget who Helion is. Like, I didn't forget his name. I didn't forget who he is. He's just there, right? In the back of your head. So, Leo's signs are bold, warm, and loving. They're also ultimate performers. They can dazzle with theatrical flair of a Broadway star and the charisma of a politician. I mean, guys, what we got of Helion is literally this. He walks into a room and the attention is immediately his, and he's such a politician. He's the life of the party, and yeah, he is definitely very theatrical. I mean, in that meeting of the High Lords, he was hilarious. He made me laugh, and he was so performative. So that's him. And we actually find out later on that he does perform all the time, because just like Reese, he wants to show the world this kind of a persona that's not actually real, right? Who he actually is someone completely different, but he shows that he is like that only with the people he feels closest to. So they're captivating personalities, obviously. Leos inject ambition into everything they do. They are ruled by the heart. Their actions are natural and effortless because they are brash and confident and trust their instincts. Leos have an unrelenting appetite for growth that is easily satiated by the praise of others. I think this is definitely him. He's so confident. He just like the way he said that he had a dream about Mor and Azriel or something, like being with them sexually. When they're hurting, it shows. They will use their anger as a protective wall to shield their vulnerabilities. They want to be perceived as unbreakable because they are scared of admitting vulnerability, needing things from other people, or being incomplete. So that's him, right? Like we said, he's like Rysand. He pretends to be a certain persona, but he's not that. He kind of wants people to believe a certain thing so that he isn't seen as vulnerable. And I think this is kind of similar to Lucian, who is probably his son, right? He also kind of shows himself as this charismatic, fun personality, but deep down he is hurting and he needs to deal with some shit. And we've also seen with Helion that he is kind and sweet to his friends, but when a nerve is struck, he can be cold and he can raise his voice. So he is the leader, right? He's also very flirtatious and will do anything to have someone in bed, since he knows no one can say no to his beauty. And I think Farah or someone also noted, how beautiful he is. That's it for Helion, the Leo. Let me know if there's anything I missed or if there's any other sign that you think is a better fit for a Leo. But honestly, I feel like Helion, the moment he walked into that room, I was like, he's a Leo. So yeah, now we're moving on to Virgos. Virgos, do you have any guesses who it might be here? I'm gonna say it, it's like a female and she's very pretty, obviously like every Sarah J Maas character. She has red hair and blue eyes like the ocean, and it's our beautiful Gwyn. Okay, I did not know who I was gonna put as a Virgo because I don't know that many Virgos. I think I'm like close friends with only one Virgo in my life, but I have never like really dived into the Virgo horoscope. So I really didn't know. But once I started reading again the descriptions and kind of remembering what Virgos are all about, I was like, well, shit, that's Gwyn. Because honestly, the one thing that did stick with me when it comes to Virgos and my past readings is that they're perfectionists and that they're very like clean in the sense, they're very organized. So I was like, well, which character here is super organized? And now that I think about it, I think it is Gwyn. I mean, she is a librarian. She's an assistant to a priestess, very important priestess. And I think she has to be organized in order to do that job. And also, I forgot what she did. Oh, no, I just remembered. This priestess, she was writing a book, right, about the Valkyries. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And Gwyn is the one who put their names in there too, like as the future Valkyries, how they're going to continue the tradition. And I don't know, I think that's a Virgo thing to do, like to come up with that idea and to be so, I guess, organized and stuff to write that in. I mean, that's literally a book. And if you want to write a book, you have to be organized, you have to be meticulous, and that's Gwyn, essentially. So let's dive into Virgos. They're known for being perfectionists. They're known for their attention to detail, which helps them find patterns where there are none. At times, Virgos can be finicky and critical to a fault. It's true that Virgos are very particular, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they keep neat spaces. So basically, they could live in chaos, but as long as that chaos is organized to them, like organized chaos, you know what I mean? I feel like it seems that Virgos are very misunderstood in that sense. When you hear that a Virgo is organized, it doesn't necessarily mean that their house is just super tidy and everything is in place. No, it just means that it's like organized to them. And also they have like little small tendencies like no shoes in the house or no outside clothes on the bed. Like rules. They have rules in place that they kind of follow. And I think that Gwyn essentially, she is kind of a rule follower, Everything has its place in her life. And Virgos actually tend to put helping others over their own comfort. Again, I think this is something that I think Gwyn is very selfless in that. I think that when it comes to her friends and her family, she would do anything to protect them, even if it means harm to her. And she has proven that in the past when it came to the children, for example, that she protected. When it came to Nesta, when she needed friends, she comforted her, came to her house. And when they were in that competition, she did not back down, even though it meant that they might die, meaning she didn't think of her own comfort. She was there for her friends. And the thing is with Virgos that they can become so busy fixing the lives of those around them that they don't put much work into providing for their own needs. I'm not sure about this one. Like, I think we don't know Gwyn that well. I do think that for now, it seems that she does put others above herself. That's a feel I got about her, a feeling, but we'll see. They're also known for being intelligent, but because of their introverted nature, they can sometimes have trouble expressing themselves. Talking to them may feel like floating on the surface of existence and like you never know what they're thinking and feeling deep inside. So, I think that's also true. She is definitely intelligent and she is more on the introverted side. I don't think she's ever really expressed herself to her friends up until the moment of the competition where she basically told them her story. So it took her a while, to get there and talk about it. It was probably because she wasn't ready, but I can definitely associate that with just not knowing how to, right? Virgo's emphasis on thoughts and ideas can seem like a cover-up for their lack of emotional depth. In reality, they are a fortress unto themselves, the definition of self-containment. Virgos will be endlessly accepting of whatever you have to share, but may not see the value in spontaneously performing a similar excavation of themselves for anyone else. But eventually she did that, and she did that for Nesta and Emery, and that was beautiful. And one of my favorite quotes of Gwyn is, "I'm the rock against which the surf crashes. Nothing can break me." That is so beautiful. Like, I'm thinking of having that tattooed on my arm or somewhere because it's so good. Okay, yeah. So actually, that's it. That's it for this episode. I don't want it to be too long. So yeah, that's it. I will post part 2 next week, I think. So the other half of the Zodiac signs and the other ACOTAR characters. So we have quite a few left. And after that, you can let me know if there are any other characters that I did not mention, but you would also want to hear a Zodiac analysis of. And yeah, that's it for today. Hopefully you liked it. If you did, share this with your friends. subscribe to my channel, rate my channel, please, and give it a 5 stars. Don't rate it if it's lower. And let me know if you have any ideas, suggestions for future episodes, if there's anything specific you would want to hear. I am open to ideas. I'm open to conversations. That's why I'm here. And yeah, follow me on Instagram for future updates so you can keep up with me. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk next week. Bye!